August 3rd, 1944. 1520 hours. A rail junction 15 miles inland from Caen hums with the ordinary violence of repair. Sledges on spikes, cranes creaking, the tired music of iron. Oberbaurat Klaus Richter has learned to file the front's thunder as weather, always there, seldom urgent. Then the earth itself changes note. Not the snap and crack of field guns. A bass that seems to rise from the subsoil as if France were exhaling. Men pause. A few look up. There's nothing to see. No aircraft, no smoke, no muzzle flash on any horizon. Just that gathering growl. The shell never appears. It arrives. A locomotive, 90 tons of heat and steel, detonates into shrapnel flour. Rails twist like licorice. A crater swallows ballast enough to rebuild a road, not a track. Richter is face down, 50 yards from the blast, mouth gritty with dust, ears ringing, plans erased. His careful schedule, one line open, the second due by dusk, is now triage and body bags. His report tries to make sense of nonsense. It was too big for field artillery, too far for anything he knows, and yet the nearest Allied ships at 15 miles away, across German-held land. The conclusion lands like dread. Britain has guns on rails that can throw car-sized shells from beyond retaliation. One of the 18-inch monsters, firing shells weighing over 1,400 pounds from more than 20 miles, had rolled out from the shadowed mouth of a tunnel, fired a single aimed round, and vanished back into the hillside before reconnaissance could blink. From daylight to darkness, again in under 10 minutes. Victorian thunder, updated. Victorian brutalism, rewired for a new war. The premise is almost stupidly simple. Take naval ordnance, 12, 13.5, even 18-inch guns, from decommissioned battleships, bolt them to reinforced rail carriages, and let the continent's iron web move what no road could bear. The result is not pretty. These are machines that look built, not designed. Exposed gearing, laced girders, hydraulic scabs, and improvised brackets where shipboard systems were persuaded onto wheels. But ugliness is not a metric of effectiveness. Railway guns do 3 things no field piece can do simultaneously. Throw a single shell with the destructive authority of an entire battery. Do it from a range that makes counter-battery a fairy tale. Go away before you can find them. The interwar world mostly abandoned the type as inflexible, expensive, vulnerable. Germany kept a few, then bet on more mobile, heavy artillery. Britain looked at the scrapyards of empire, saw a mountain of gun barrels that still worked, and asked a wartime question. What can these do that nothing else can? Answer. Collapse coastal batteries, erase junctions, silence headquarters, and spook entire armies. What it sounds like. When geography shoots at you, coast-to-coast duels along the Channel in 1940 and 41 are the prologue. Long range, harassing fire, impressive but expected. In Normandy, the sound becomes a weapon. German troops know field artillery, the stuttering rhythm of a battery, the whine and whicker of incoming. Railway guns break the script. The firing boom is distant, dislocated, often audible to the target, but so far away that it tells you nothing useful. There's a breath, sometimes 2. Then the projectile tears its own corridor through the air. The rushing is its own kind of horror because it arrives almost with the impact. No useful warning, no take cover that matters. A single hit does what normal barrages spend minutes performing. Buildings collapse without drama, vehicles somersault, craters arrive that an infantry section can use as a ready-made bunker. An artillery commander, Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, writes it dryly and damningly. One shell does the work of a battery. The range puts your retaliation out beyond maps. And deep in every after-action is the sentence commanders hate to draft. We cannot fight back. Why you can't hit what hit you. German counter-battery doctrine is doctrinal pride. spot the flash, or listen with sound-ranging microphones. Calculate, answer with overwhelming fire. It presumes reach. Heavy German field pieces can stretch to 12, sometimes 15 miles. British railguns begin well beyond that, at 20 and then some, and add the ultimate bad manners. They move. You can't hit what you can't range, and by the time an aerial sortie is mustered, cued, briefed, launched, guided, the gun is back under the chalk, or rolled to a different spur, or squatting in a forest revetment under nets and noise discipline. In 1944, the Luftwaffe can barely defend the front, let alone hunt a ghost that fires a dozen shells a day and spends the rest of its life in tunnels. Ground raids, fantasies. The guns sit where German infantry cannot, in rear areas that belong to an enemy with air superiority and plentiful artillery of the ordinary kind. So Germany does the only sane thing left: disperse, harden, duplicate. Spread locomotives across sidings, add timber and earth to roofs, split headquarters into shards, build a spare bridge you hope you never need. These measures shave the damage. They do not erase the fear. How you aim a monster. Siege weapon conjures clumsy. What arrives in practice is method, carriage and recoil. A multi-bogey frame spreads weight across rails that were not designed for ships' guns. The recoil system is a small industry. Hydraulics, spring packs, sometimes a sliding recoil that lets the whole carriage roll back under braking. Everything is engineered to fire without tearing up the track that must carry you home. Traverse. You can't spin an 18-inch barrel like a turret. You shimmy the gun left or right within a tight arc, or you align the entire train on a curved section of track to aim by geometry. Before a mission, engineers massage rail into a shallow arc. That is, in truth, a sighting system as much as a road, elevation and fire control. Naval sights grafted to land problems, calculations for drop, drift, temperature, charge wear, all blended with corrections from spotter planes or advanced observation posts. This is not random terror. At 20 miles, close is useless. You need hits. With practice, they get them. The choreography is a timed drill. Roll from cover, jack to settle, set elevation and traverse. Load what looks like a small oil drum into the breech. Fire. Absorb the world's worst recoil politely. Record, adjust, fire again, or don't. Then reverse the poem. Breech safe, jack down, brakes off, back into the throat of the hill. 10 minutes if you're good, less if you've done it for weeks. Where they hurt the most coastal batteries. Across the Channel, British railguns reach out to touch German emplacements that might harass merchantmen and convoy escorts. At those spans, counterfire is a theory. British guns squat behind chalk and hedges, invisible and smug. Rail. In France, the railway is lifeblood. Junctions are vulnerability dressed as infrastructure. A single well-walked shell breaks a node and forces a fortnight of engineers to fill a single hole while every other hole in the front goes unfilled. Headquarters. Intelligence loves addresses. A 1,400-pound argument delivered to a staff building makes rank irrelevant. The result is a British victory beyond explosives. German command learns to scatter, move, shroud, all correct, all slower. Dumps. Ammunition favored by gravity hates fire. Hit a stack with a super-heavy shell and physics finish the job. Secondary detonations that dwarf the original burst, stockpiles erased, timetables rewritten. Fillets. In the closing jaw of the pocket, mass becomes target. You do not need to search. The enemy is present in quantity. Guns at their maximum reach lob a dozen shells a day and warp behavior disproportionately. Reports note it plainly. Super-heavy British artillery affects morale and willingness to remain in position. That's bureaucrat, for we want to be anywhere else. Accuracy is not perfection. Artillery never is. But with aerial eyes and disciplined plotting, the hit rate rises from nuisance to operational. A bridge lashed twice, a junction lifted carefully out of a landscape, a headquarters that is now a hole with papers burning in it. What a single shot means. Think of the economics of a moment like Richter's junction. One shot, locomotive erased, crater the size of a swimming pool, rails beyond repair bent into modern sculpture. 2 weeks to mend, 2 weeks of cranes that cannot rebuild bridges elsewhere, 2 weeks of men who cannot prepare defenses elsewhere, 2 weeks of trains rerouted into inefficiency. That damage is legible. The other cost, the one that slips past tallies, is the decision-making you never see. The trains that do not move at noon, the staff that won't meet in one room, the column that chooses a longer road because the shorter passes too near a likely firing arc. Every time a commander asks, "Are we within 20 miles of a mystery?" and changes a plan, a railway gun has worked without firing. The technology inside the boom. At this scale, even the mundane is heroic. Charges bagged and stacked, measured like medicine. Too much and you outrun your own barrel's patience. Too little and the round will fall short into a field you've already ruined. Barrel wear, logged like a pilot's hours. Every shot lengthens the next table. When a tube is tired, you swap it the way a navy does, except your dockyard is a siding. Maintenance in the dark, crews living with grease under their nails, stripping recoil glands, checking. Seals, chasing the thousands of little leaks that old hydraulics invent at midnight. None of this is glamorous. All of it is the difference between astonishing on paper and effective on Thursday. The enemy learns the wrong lesson. In 1940, German troops learned to fear ships they could see, a big gun on a gray horizon. In 1944, they learned to fear mathematics, ranges you cannot reply to, trajectories you cannot watch. A faraway boom that may or may not be for you, and the adult knowledge that there is no drill that saves you if it is. Men do not break because they are weak. They break because their universe stops making sense. Railway guns turn artillery from duel to monologue. You are not in a fight. You're in an orbit around a weapon that does not even know your name. Not war-winning, war-bending. No railway gun captured Berlin. They are too slow for breakthroughs, too few for saturation, too specialized to live on a fluid front. What they do is bend. Timetables, morale, command posture, infrastructure plans. They make everything the enemy does a little worse, a little later, a little more frightened. And they do it with parts the world called obsolete. Victorian steel, great war carriages, ship guns retired to warehouses and summoned back like old gods, imperfect, inconvenient, still divine at a certain task. The 10-minute thunder picture. The ritual once more. A tunnel mouth breathes a train into sunlight. Men in blue denim and oil step the choreography they've drilled to reflex. Jacks bite earth. Track brakes kiss steel. A shell bigger than a sofa comes up the ramp and disappears into a breach like a door to a furnace. Someone checks a slide rule. Someone else calls an elevation. A spotter far away says, "Left 2, add 100. And the barrel comes to rest with a dignity that looks like patience. The order is simple. The world's reply is complex. Hills that echo, a sky that seems to flex, a distant junction that discovers how quickly plans can end. Before the dust there has even settled, the gun is already a rumor, backing into the hill that hides it. German reports will call it super heavy, beyond range, impossible to locate. Infantry will give it a sound, the deep, far thunder, then the rushing, then the very abrupt silence of absence. The British called it good engineering. The men who faced it called it what it felt like. Fate on rails.